COVID proved that to give our food system away, to let an oligarchy handle the whole system, 85%. That's, 85 out of 100 is a lot. I think it's a very dangerous situation. And we saw that in the last 2 months.
For years now, I've noticed that there's what I call a war on farmers, a war on ranchers, a war on independent producers of all kinds, energy producers, miners, loggers, especially ranchers and farmers. And I know I'm not the only one who's noticed this, and it's a global phenomenon. And then during the coronavirus, we had some really strange things happening. And one cattle rancher in Texas and Colorado, his name is Shad Sullivan, and we have him with us today, made a video that just went absolutely ballistic. I mean, it blew up and was seen by millions of people all over the world, talking about some of what was going on, and even possible food shortages. Now we have people like the head of the UN World Food Program saying that within the next few months we're going to see famines of biblical proportions. And so we're very honored to have with us Mr. Shad Sullivan, a cattle rancher. Shad, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate being here.
Hey, well, it's great to have you. Thank you. So, Shad, for those people who've been maybe living under a rock, haven't been paying much attention, tell us a little bit about why you decided to make that video, kind of what you went through, and what happened with the video afterwards. If you would do that.
Yeah, so I was just out working one day, and of course, it was right during the coronavirus pandemic, and we had already seen the effects of the COVID-19 on our food supply in terms of shortages. We've had milk being thrown away, and vegetable crops being plowed up, hogs being aborted, and euthanized, chickens as well. And so I knew that that was a possibility with our beef supply because we had such a backup in the chain, a bottleneck, so to speak, in the chain. And then that day that I did the video, we got an email from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that actually talked about and was pre-warning us that we would probably or likely see some euthanization in the beef industry, that they were going to send teams of people through the USDA and RCS out to help us with the depopulation and disposal of said animals. And that set wrong with me because I had remembered my dad talking about euthanization of the beef cattle industry in the 30s and 50s, and that was due to drought and disease, not the coronavirus pandemic. Well, I had remembered the day before that we had reached the first shipment of Namibian or African beef had hit the shores of the United States. So I'm putting all this together and I'm saying to myself, what is going on here? Why are we importing all this beef? We've got a backup in the supply chain, and we got food shortages and food lines as long as they were during the Great Depression. So I just set wrong with me, and there's been so much control in the beef industry as far as market manipulation and global control, and it just set wrong with me. I immediately did the video off the cuff. I didn't mean to sound fear mongering or panicked. It just happened. It came from my heart, and that's where we are today. And obviously, after that happened, things, all those things that I said were proven to be right, and there's been movements along the way to that have backed up what I said. And obviously, you've seen the beef supply on store shelves, and it's been a real catastrophe, really. And it's not it COVID-19 exacerbated our problem, but it didn't create our problem. And so we sit here today with a lot of hurting producers and consumers out there, and we need to deal with these issues in our and many other industries as well. But the beef industry is a big one right now, and we got to get something done.
Yeah, I can tell you, going to the grocery store, the price of ground beef, the price of steak is shooting through the roof. Meanwhile, you've got Burger King promoting this meatless Whopper and all that. It's almost like there's an agenda. We just recently interviewed the head of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, and he talked about some of what you just touched on, that the global marketplace seems to be rigged against the American farmer, against the American rancher. These giant multinational corporations and oligarchies. Has that been your experience as well? What are some of the the problems that you see in terms of the way the marketplace is structured right now and maybe some of the policies?
It absolutely is the problem. It's the main problem within our industry. Over the last 40 years, our government has allowed acquisitions and mergers of packing facilities across the nation. It has lowered the number of those facilities from 800 local and regional facilities down to just a few home-owned facilities. But the main problem is the oligarchy that you talk about has taken control, and we have four main beef processors in the United States that control 85% of our food supply. Well, when the COVID pandemic came about, we learned something, that maybe we shouldn't put our eggs all in one basket, right? So it created this bottleneck because workers in those facilities truly, number one, they got sick from the COVID, and then they had a fear of going to work. So they basically didn't go to work. They couldn't get the cattle processed to come through the supply chain, and it bottlenecked up. And today, the report is we have 1 million head of cattle backed up. But the main concern here is the lack of competition in our marketplace and the ability to merge these huge companies together. So of those four beef packing companies, only two of them are American owned. Two of them are Brazilian owned. The biggest one in the world is Brazilian owned under the JBS South America Corporation. They also own Pilgrim's Pride here in the United States, the chicken processing company. So we're giving all of our food security and our processing or our food chain system away to foreign entities. And it is a food safety issue. And we're going to have to deal with that sooner or later. We have laws on the books. The Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921 created an environment of fair trade and fair practice from the producer clear up to the packer. And that has not been enforced. We've had the oligarchy just gets larger and larger. You know, it's funny to say that JBS USA, their owners, a family by the last name of Batista, out of Brazil, two of the brothers, Jocelyn and Wesley, just got out of prison in Brazil for corruption charges. And here we are letting them control our food supply. I think it's, I don't know where we lost our sovereignty somewhere along the way, but I think it's dangerous. And I think COVID proved that to give our food system away, to let an oligarchy handle the whole system, 85%, that's, 85 out of 100 is a lot. I think it's a very dangerous situation. And we saw that in the last 2 months.
Yeah. So if you could talk to Congress, if you could talk to state legislators and governors, and maybe even President Trump, what would you recommend that they do to try to deal with some of these issues, protect American food security, protect American producers, and at least not have the marketplace rigged in favor of these giant companies and foreign companies? I mean, what could they do? Should they pass a new law? Should they repeal some laws? Should they get rid of some regulations? What would be the best things to do for independent producers?
Well, number one, I think we have to go after corruption. We have to end corruption in the marketplace, and it is all over. Just today, I saw an article where Bumblebee Foods, their executive CEO, is facing 3 years in prison for price fixing charges. This is not just in the beef industry, but the beef industry is huge. It's almost cartel-like. So the first thing I say is we end corruption. We have to go after those who are breaking those antitrust laws. We have to go after those who are colluding and conspiring to depress prices by eliminating competition. That's the first thing. Then we have to enforce the rules that we have. We have to make it available, we have to make it easier for younger generations to get into the business, become competitive in that business, whether it's on the ranch or in a packing facility. There's a lot of, since COVID-19, and it's a blessing from God, it's a true miracle that all across the nation, local processors are coming back online by the thousands. You can't even get an animal in to be processed in my area for a year now. That's a great thing. That's spreading the risk out in our food supply. It's giving more competition out there, and it's creating jobs, and it's creating the ability for young people to come into the business. So we have to create rules or create regulations or deregulate in order to create that aura of competition.
Excellent. And do you think there's any kind of agenda going on here? I mean, whose interests are being served by the system that exists right now? What are their goals? What are they up to? And what can average citizens do about it?
Well, the average citizen, if you're a patriot of the United States, you have to stand up and talk. And of course, that's probably what I've done, and maybe wrong or right. That's what I've done. I'm going to stand for my beliefs because I think we have to get back to the America First policy. We have to take care of our own people. There is an agenda, and it is all so interconnected and intertwined, it gets totally confusing. But the agenda is to in my industry, is to rid the world of beef cattle. That comes down from the United Nations. You're seeing it through the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. You're seeing it through animal rights activity, attacks and activity across the world. You're seeing it through the World Wildlife Fund, organizations such as that are really eccentric and crazy big, and they have a lot of money. And we right now in the United States, we have this partnership with the World Wildlife Fund in our they've infiltrated our cattlemen's organizations, and they say, "Oh, we're here to help you," but their own speaker has said, and I quote, "Cattle are killing the planet." These are things that are so intertwined, and it goes from it starts at the United Nations, and we have to become a sovereign nation again. We need to get out of the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization. We need to kick the United Nations out of the country because we are not sovereign. And it's very important to understand that how intermingled, commingled all of this jargon is from the most basic principles of your food supply clear up to control of the land. We're getting private property attacks are on the rise and are out of control, especially in the western United States. In 2014, 8 counties in southeast Colorado, where I'm from, had to go to war. They were going to, without us knowing, put a blanket coverage of a national heritage area over 8 counties in southeast Colorado without us even knowing. We didn't even give them permission. That came through in a corrupt manner. So these things are happening all over the United States. And I think it's important that people understand that so I'm a Christian, and in order for the New World Order to be implemented after the rapture of the church, they must have control of the food, the water, the fiber, and the land. And that's where we're headed right now.
Yeah, Shad, it really does seem like everything's getting more and more centralized. Government coming down from the United Nations, the food
Absolutely.
industry, the oil industry, everything is getting more and more centralized, and it's going to be terrible for the average American, I think. And Shad, anything else that we didn't ask you about that you want? Any final words you want to mention to people out there? Maybe people considering agriculture, people considering calling their member of Congress right now. Anything else you want to mention?
Well, as a human being, as a person, I think it's important that we know where our food supply comes from. So I encourage all callers or viewers to contact their legislatures, not only on the state level but on the national level, and not beg, but demand country of origin labeling on their beef. Beef and pork are the only products in the United States that are not country of origin labeled. We need to do that. That transparency needs to happen, and it's deceptive to the consumer to not let them have the freedom of choice. And that's what mandatory country of origin labeling does. It is a law, it is a mandated law through the federal government, but it provides liberty. It's not like other laws that take liberty away. This one provides for the liberty and freedom of choice by the consumers. And so I think that's really important. And the next thing is I think we need to get back to the basics of being Americans and being proud to be an American, stand up for our rights, learn the Constitution, and get back to where this nation can be prosperous and proud and stop all this nonsense.
Amen. I couldn't agree with you more, Shad. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for that amazing video you did that went around the world and back 18 times.
Mhm.
And thank you for helping to feed America. Goodness gracious! I
Yeah.
mean, it's so great to have real Americans out there who are actually doing productive things and serving their fellow citizens and putting food on people's tables. So we really appreciate it, Shad. Folks out there, I mean, listen to what this man is saying. This stuff is really serious. And, the reason we don't have country of origin labeling laws is because our Congress is a bunch of cowards. As soon as the World Trade Organization said we weren't allowed to have country of origin labeling laws, they said, oh, yes, master, we'll stop that right away.
Yep.
That is absurd. That is insane. Bureaucrats at the global level should not be telling Americans what to do. And it's even worse, right? They have actually made now the grocery stores and the government complicit in a fraud. When we interviewed the head of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association the other day, he talked about how they're putting American beef on beef that was grown in some other country, and maybe they did one thing to it here, and then they're calling it American. That's a fraud. That's a lie. Your average American consumer doesn't know the intricacies of this. They think they're getting American beef. So folks, this stuff is important. Our food security is important. Our ranchers are important. Our farmers are important. Our freedom is important, guys. So get
Amen.
involved. Share this video with your friends. Like it, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and help get the word out. Shad, thank you once again. Everybody out there, God bless you all, and don't forget to get involved. Thanks again.